The sun had just begun to rise over the New Mexico desert when Lena Carter stepped out of her small apartment. The air was cool, and the sky was painted in soft oranges and pinks. She took a deep breath, letting the quiet morning settle around her like a blanket. Lena was 35 years old, with short brown hair and eyes that had seen more than most people her age. She used to fly fighter jets for the Air Force, but now she worked as an aerospace engineer at a private tech firm called Virex Dynamics. Most people didn't know what Virex really did. Officially, they built satellites and drones. Unofficially, they worked on things that didn't exist yet. Today was no ordinary day. She had been called in early for a special job. A satellite had come back from orbit with some strange readings, and her boss wanted her to take a look. As she pulled into the parking lot, the building looked normal from the outside, just another tech facility in the middle of nowhere. But inside it was different. There were cameras everywhere. Guards checked IDs. No one talked too much about what they were working on. It was all very secret. Lena walked through the halls until she reached the lab. Inside, a large metal table stood in the center, and on top of it was the satellite. It wasn't big, about the size of a refrigerator, but it looked worn from its time in space. "Morning," said a voice from across the room. She turned to see Daniel Reyes leaning against a desk, drinking coffee. He was a few years older than her, with dark skin and tired eyes. They had known each other since their military days. "You're here early," Lena said. "So are you," he replied, handing her a cup. "You ready?" "For this?" She nodded, toward the satellite. "I guess." Daniel handed her a tablet with the satellite's data logs. It started acting weird 2 weeks ago, then it stopped sending signals altogether. Yesterday it reappeared near Mars. No one knows how. Lena frowned. "That doesn't make sense. Satellites don't just disappear and show up somewhere." "Else?" "Nope," Daniel agreed. "So we need to find out why." They got to work. Lena opened the satellite's outer shell and began running diagnostics. The system was damaged, but not from space debris. It looked intentional, like someone, or something, had tampered with it. After hours of testing, she found a file, buried deep in the memory core. It was encrypted, which wasn't unusual, but the code was unlike anything she'd ever seen. "I've never seen encryption like this," she said, showing Daniel the screen. He leaned in closer. "That's because it's not ours." She looked at him. "Then whose is it?" Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he typed something into his own device and sent it off. A moment later, a message came back. "We need to report this," he said quietly. "To who?" "To Watchtower." Lena froze. She knew the name. Everyone in the higher levels of defense and intelligence had heard whispers about Watchtower. It was supposed to be a myth, a secret global coalition formed decades ago to monitor extraterrestrial threats. No one knew if it was real, and if it was, no one wanted to get involved. "You think this is connected to them?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "If this signal isn't ours, and it came from deep space, then yeah, we should let them know." She stared at the screen. The file still sat there locked tight. Whatever was inside could change everything. "What happens next?" she asked. "We wait," Daniel said, "and hope we're not already too late." A few hours later, Lena was sitting in a small meeting room with Daniel and 2 men she had never seen before. One was tall and wore a plain black suit. The other was older, with graying hair and a serious face. "I'm Agent Norris," the older man said. "This is Agent Malik." They both had badges, but Lena couldn't read the agency names on them. "We've reviewed your findings," Norris continued. "We need full access to the satellite and all its data." Lena exchanged a glance with Daniel. "What is this about?" Norris looked at her carefully. "We believe the satellite intercepted a signal from beyond our solar system." Lena blinked. "Like alien?" Malik finally spoke. "Not exactly. More like a warning." "A warning about what?" Norris hesitated. "An armada. Heading." This way. There was silence in the room. You're saying aliens are coming to Earth? Lena asked slowly. We don't know for sure, Norris admitted. But we can't ignore the possibility. That's why we need everything you have. Lena swallowed hard. Why tell us? Why not keep this secret? Because, Malik said, people like you are going to be needed soon. This isn't just about science anymore. It's about survival. Across the country, in Virginia, Ethan Blake was getting ready for work. He was 29 with sandy blonde hair and a quiet confidence. He was a naval officer assigned to a deep-sea research vessel called the USS Argent, docked at Norfolk Naval Base. Ethan loved the sea. It made him feel free. But lately things had felt off. His superiors were acting strange. Orders were changing last minute. Rumors were flying. He was just finishing his coffee when his phone buzzed. It was a secure line. Blake, he answered. Commander Blake, a voice said. This is Command Central. You are to mobilize your unit effective immediately. Ethan frowned. Mobilize for what? That information is classified. Just follow the orders. The line went dead. He looked down at the message again. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Operation Red Horizon. Activation protocol initiated. He didn't know what it meant, but he knew it was important. Back in New Mexico, Lena was staring at the satellite one last time before it was taken away. They're going to lock this up, she said to Daniel. No one will ever hear about this. Daniel shook his head. Maybe not today, but eventually people will find out. She sighed. Do you think we're ready for this? He looked at her seriously. We better be. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky was turning red again, and far away in the darkness between stars, something was moving. Something was coming, and Earth was watching. The message was sent. It wasn't long, and it wasn't loud, but in the silence of space it traveled faster than any warship or weapon ever could. Across the solar system, hidden satellites activated, deep space antennas turned skyward. And far beyond the orbit of Neptune, something responded. Back on Earth, the reaction was immediate. Lena Carter sat at her desk inside Virex Dynamics, staring at a blank screen. She had been pulled off the satellite project after handing everything over to Watchtower. Now she was stuck doing basic diagnostics on old drones. Boring work meant to keep her quiet. But she couldn't stop thinking about what they had found. She knew that signal hadn't come from Earth. It was too advanced, too clean. And now, after weeks of waiting, something had answered. A knock came at her door. Hey, Daniel Reyes said, stepping into the room. His face looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. You're here early, Lena said, closing her laptop. We have a problem, he replied. She frowned. What kind of problem? He walked over and handed her a small tablet. On the screen was a grainy image taken from a deep space telescope. It showed a dark shape moving between the stars. That's not ours, she whispered. Nope, Daniel said. And it's not alone. More images followed. Ships, dozens of them. Not just one armada, but many. Moving toward Earth. They heard us, Lena said quietly. Daniel nodded. And they didn't like it. Across the Atlantic, in a secure military base in England, high-ranking officials gathered around a large table. Maps and data streams filled the walls. Flags of different countries lined the ceiling. At the head of the table stood General Harold Vance, a tall man with a voice like thunder. This is no accident, he said. We sent a message. They answered. One of the officers, a woman named Colonel Meera Patel, spoke up. We don't know if this is an invasion force or just a response team. Vance shook his head. Doesn't matter. If they're coming, we prepare for war. A younger officer asked, what do we tell the public? Vance looked at him like he had asked the wrong question. Nothing, he said. Not yet. Outside, storm clouds gathered. Ethan Blake stood on the deck of the QSS Argent, watching the horizon. The sea was rough tonight. and the wind howled through the rigging. His orders had changed again. He wasn't supposed to be sailing north toward Greenland, but here he was, leading a small fleet of submarines and surface ships into unknown waters. Something big was happening. He didn't know what, but he could feel it in the air. His radio crackled. "Commander Blake," a voice said. "This is Command. Central. You are cleared for launch. Repeat, you are cleared for launch." Ethan blinked. "Launch what?" There was a pause before the reply came. "The Aegis system." He froze. Aegis was a secret program, a joint effort between the Navy and private defense contractors. It was designed to control orbital weapons platforms from beneath the ocean. No one outside the highest levels of command even knew it existed. And now, it was being activated. "Understood," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Initiating protocol." As he turned to give orders to his crew, he couldn't help but wonder, what had they just set in motion? Back in New Mexico, Lena and Daniel sat in a dimly lit room, reviewing data from the incoming alien vessels. "They're fast," Lena said. "Faster than anything we've built." Daniel pointed at the screen. "They're also scanning us, looking for weaknesses." Lena leaned back in her chair. "So why haven't they attacked yet?" Daniel thought for a moment. "Maybe they want to see what we'll do next." Before Lena could respond, the lights flickered, then went out. A second later, emergency lights kicked in, casting a red glow across the room. "What the hell?" Lena muttered. Daniel grabbed his phone and checked the network. His face paled. "They're jamming our signals," he said. "Someone's trying to shut us down." Lena stood up. "Who?" Daniel looked at her. "I think we just made our first enemy." On the other side of the world, in Geneva, the United Nations Security Council met behind closed doors. Inside the chamber, diplomats argued loudly. Some wanted to send another message to the aliens, offering peace. Others believed humanity should strike first. One man, Ambassador David Langley, raised his hand for silence. "This isn't just about diplomacy anymore," he said. "This is about survival." A woman from Russia crossed her arms. "You think sending more messages will change their minds?" Langley shook his head. "No, but showing strength might." A long silence followed. Finally, the Secretary General spoke. "We send a final message," he said, "but not one of surrender, one of warning." Everyone in the room understood. Humanity was done hiding. 2 days later, the signal was sent. It was simple. Just a few lines. "Earth does not seek war, but we will not fall. We are ready." The message was broadcast from every major antenna on the planet. It reached the Moon, Mars, and the edge of the solar system. And then, for the first time, the aliens responded. Not with words, with action. A single ship broke away from the main fleet. It moved fast, too fast, and entered Earth's orbit. It hovered above the Pacific Ocean for exactly 30 seconds. Then it fired. A beam of energy shot down from the sky and struck the coast of California. Buildings crumbled. Power grids failed. Thousands were injured. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the ship vanished. Panic spread across the globe. People screamed. Governments called for emergency meetings. News outlets scrambled to report what had just happened. But in the chaos, something else happened. Earth fought back. Hidden defenses activated. Lasers fired from mountaintops. Missiles launched from under the ocean. Fighter jets scrambled into the sky. The alien ship reappeared, but this time, it was met with fire. For the first time in history, humanity proved it was not helpless, and the galaxy took notice. That night, Lena stood on the roof of Virex Dynamics looking up at the stars. Daniel joined her. "They're watching us now," he said. She nodded. "Yeah, and they won't underestimate us again." Below them, the city buzzed with fear and confusion. People didn't know what was happening, but those who had seen the truth knew one thing. The war had begun, and Earth was ready. The attack on California had been a warning, but Earth didn't retreat. It fought back harder than anyone, human or alien, had expected. Across the globe, military bases buzzed with activity. Air bases launched jets into the sky. Submarines dove deep beneath the oceans. Satellites shifted positions in orbit. And in secret bunkers hidden beneath mountains and cities, people worked non-stop to prepare for what was coming next. Lena Carter stood in a control room inside Virex Dynamics, staring at a massive screen filled with data streams and satellite feeds. The alien ship that had fired on California was gone now, but its message wasn't lost on anyone. "They're testing us," she said quietly. Daniel Reyes leaned against the wall nearby, arms crossed. "Yeah, and we passed." She looked at him. "Do you really believe that?" He nodded. "They thought we were weak, easy prey, but we hit them hard. They didn't expect that." A technician interrupted them. "We've got movement near Mars." Lena and Daniel turned to the main screen. A new feed appeared. Low quality, grainy, but clear enough. There it was. Another alien ship. Or maybe the same one. It hovered near one of humanity's deep space stations. No signal, no message. Just watching. Waiting. "We need to report this," Lena said. Daniel shook his head. "Watchtower already knows, but they're not saying anything." She frowned. "Why not?" "Because some people are scared," he replied. "And some people are thinking about giving up." In Geneva, the United Nations Security Council met again, this time under much higher pressure. Inside the chamber, voices clashed like thunder. "This is madness," shouted a delegate from France. "We should be negotiating, not escalating." Across the table, Ambassador David Langley stood up. "Negotiating with who? They don't want peace, they want control." A Russian diplomat scoffed. "You think we can win a war like this?" Langley pointed toward a large screen behind him. On it was footage of the battle over California. The lasers, the missiles, the fighter jets firing into space. "We all ready?" "Won the first round," he said. "Now we decide if we keep fighting." Silence followed. Then the Secretary General spoke. "We must remain united," he said. "If we fracture now, we lose everything." But even as he spoke, some nations began pulling away. Behind closed doors, secret meetings took place. Some leaders believed Earth should surrender before things got worse. Others saw an opportunity to trade Earth's freedom for power in the new order, and somewhere in the shadows someone made a call, not to Earth, to the aliens. Ethan Blake sat in the command center of the USS Argent, reviewing reports from across the fleet. The attack on California had changed everything. His unit had been called in to protect key coastal zones. Other ships were moving into position around Greenland, Iceland, and Antarctica, strategic points where alien forces might try to land. His radio crackled. "Commander Blake," came a voice. "This is Command Central. You have new orders." Ethan leaned forward. "Go ahead. You are to take full command of Task Force Echo. Prepare for orbital defense operations." Ethan blinked. "Orbital? That's classified." The voice on the other end stayed calm. "It's authorized. You'll receive support within 12 hours. The line went dead. Ethan stared at the radio. He knew what this meant. They were going, all in. Back in New Mexico, Lena and Daniel discovered something they weren't supposed to see. A hidden file buried deep inside Virex's network. Encrypted. Locked. But Lena was good with code. She cracked it open. Inside was a list of names. Government officials. Military officers. Scientists. People who had agreed to hand over Earth's secrets in exchange for protection when the war ended. Traitors. Daniel read the list slowly. "This isn't just politics," he whispered. "This is betrayal." Lena felt sick. "How long has this been going on?" Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and sent a secure message. "What are you doing?" Lena asked. "I'm calling in help," he said. "We can't trust anyone inside Watchtower anymore." She looked at him. "Who do we trust then?" He met her eyes. "The people." That night, the world watched as another alien ship entered Earth's orbit. This time, it didn't fire. Instead, it broadcast a message, a voice, cold and mechanical, echoed across every television, radio, and device connected to the global network. Earth, your resistance is noted. Surrender now, and your species will survive. Continue this fight, and you will be erased. Panic spread like wildfire. Cities emptied, governments locked down. People cried, prayed, fled, but not everyone gave up. In basements, labs, and hidden rooms across the planet, engineers, pilots, soldiers, and scientists kept working. They built weapons, upgraded defenses, trained recruits, and in the skies above, Earth's hidden fleets prepared for war. At dawn, Ethan led a mission unlike any before. Flying in a high-speed transport craft, he traveled to a secret base located in the Arctic Circle. There, he boarded a newly developed hybrid fighter, an air-sea orbital vehicle capable of fighting anywhere. His team was small but elite. As they lifted off, the sky lit up with streaks of light, missiles launching, satellites shifting into position. The enemy was watching, and so was the galaxy. Later that day, Lena and Daniel arrived at a hidden facility outside Denver. Inside, dozens of scientists and military personnel worked around the clock. They were preparing to activate Operation Red Horizon, a planetary-wide AI defense system designed to coordinate every human weapon in real time. Lena walked through the halls, seeing maps, diagrams, and live feeds of the battlefield. Daniel stopped beside her. "This is it," he said. "No more hiding." She nodded. "No more waiting." Outside, the wind howled, and far above, the stars burned brighter than ever. The war had begun in silence. Now it roared across the stars. Earth was no longer a secret, no longer a footnote in the galaxy's long history of conquest and control. It was a battlefield, and a rising power. Across the planet, cities burned, under alien fire. But so did enemy ships fall from the sky, shot down by weapons humanity had built in secret for decades. The Zalari, once confident in their superiority, now faced something they hadn't expected: resistance that refused to die, and resistance that fought back harder than ever. Lena Carter stood in the command center beneath Virex Dynamics, watching. The screens flicker with data. Reports came in fast, some good, some bad. A fleet of Zalari dropships had been destroyed over Europe. A major defense station near the moon had fallen. China had launched its own orbital strike force. Russia had gone dark. She turned to Daniel Reyes, who was speaking into a secure radio. "They're pulling back," he said after hanging up. "At least for now." Lena frowned. "Why? We've only just started fighting." Daniel shook his head. "They're not retreating. They're regrouping." He tapped on the screen, bringing up a new image. A map of the solar system with red dots marking enemy movements. "They're sending more," he continued. "But this time they're not coming alone." Lena stared at the data. More ships were arriving. Not just Zalari, others. "This isn't just their war anymore," she whispered. "No," Daniel agreed. "It's becoming everyone's." Half a world away, Ethan Blake sat inside the cockpit of his hybrid fighter, staring out at the stars. His unit had just returned from a mission near Jupiter. They had intercepted a Zalari scout group trying to set up a forward base. They destroyed them, but not without losses. He looked at the list of names on his tablet. 5 pilots didn't come back. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Commander?" a voice asked from behind him. He turned to see Lieutenant Mia Grant, one of his best navigators. "We've got orders," she said. "Command wants us to move out again." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "So soon?" Mia nodded. "Something big is happening." He stood up, feeling the weight of command settle on his shoulders. "Then let's go find out what." Back in Geneva, the United Nations Security Council met again. This time not just to discuss Earth's survival, but its future. Ambassador David Langley stood at the front, addressing the room. "The Zalari aren't the only ones watching." "Us," he said. Other groups in the galaxy are starting to take notice. A delegate from Brazil leaned forward. What do you mean? Langley tapped a button on his tablet. A hologram appeared above the table. A message from deep space. We are not Zilari. We have suffered under their rule. We offer alliance. If you fight, we will fight with you. There was silence, then murmurs, then voices rose in debate. Some leaders were afraid. Some saw opportunity. Langley waited until the noise died down before speaking again. We can't win this war alone, he said. But if we make allies among the stars, maybe we just might stand a chance. That night, Lena and Daniel received a visitor. A man named Marcus Cole arrived at the Virex facility escorted by Watchtower agents. He wore civilian clothes, but his posture screamed military. I'm here on behalf of the Free Systems Coalition, he said. Lena narrowed her eyes. Who are they? Cole smiled slightly. Outcasts, rebels, factions that don't serve the Zilari or any other empire. They want to help us. Daniel crossed his arms. And why would they risk that? Cole's smile faded. Because they know what happens when the Zilari win. No freedom, no choice, only obedience. Lena looked at Daniel. How do we know we can trust them? Cole handed her a small device. On the screen was footage. Zilari forces attacking a rebel base on a distant moon. They already chose their side, he said. Now you have to choose yours. The next morning, Ethan led his team on a high-risk mission. Their target, AEI's, Zilari listening post orbiting Mars. It wasn't a large base, but it was important. It acted as a relay point for enemy communications. Destroying it would blind the Zilari for days. As they approached in stealth mode, the plan was simple. Get in, plant charges, get out. But things never went as planned. Halfway through the mission, alarms blared. Someone had warned the Zilari. The base was locked down. Ethan cursed. We've been set up. Mia looked at him. Orders? He thought for a second. Then he grinned. We finished the job. The team split up. Explosions echoed through the halls. Gunfire lit up the darkness. And by the time they made it back to the ship, the listening post was nothing but floating debris. As they pulled away, Ethan checked his comms. A message blinked on his screen. Good work. You're not alone anymore. No name, no sender, just those words. Back on Earth, the Free Systems Coalition made contact, not just with messages, but with action. A fleet of alien ships, unlike anything the Zilari used, entered the solar system. They didn't attack Earth. Instead, they attacked the Zilari. For the first time, humanity had real allies. Lena watched the battle unfold from the command center. Ships clashed in the void. Lasers cut through the darkness. And for the first time, Earth wasn't just defending itself, it was fighting back with friends. Daniel walked up beside her. They're serious, he said. Lena nodded. Yeah, so are we. That night, Ethan landed the USS Argent at a hidden base in Greenland. As he stepped off the ship, he was greeted by a familiar face. Marcus Cole. You did well out there, Cole said. Ethan gave him a tired look. We survived. That's more than most. Cole handed him a file. This is everything we know about the Zilari's next move. Ethan opened it. Plans, locations, weak points. He looked up. You really want to win this, huh? Cole nodded. More than you know. The war was far from over, but now, Earth had something it didn't before. Hope, allies, and the knowledge that even among the stars humans could stand tall. The war had changed. It no longer belonged to just Earth, or just the Zilari. Now it was a battle that spanned stars and systems, a fight not only for survival, but for freedom. Across the solar system, battles raged in space and on land. The skies, over Earth, lit up with fire as human ships fought side by side with their alien allies from the Free Systems Coalition. What once seemed impossible, humanity standing strong against an empire that had ruled for centuries, was now real, and it was growing. Lena Carter stood on the observation deck of a newly built orbital station named Unity 1. From here she could see Earth below, blue, beautiful, and bruised. She watched as reports came in from across the battlefield. A fleet near Saturn had destroyed a Zalari supply line. A strike team on Mars had taken out a command center. In Africa, rebel forces had helped humans push back an invasion force trying to take control of a key energy plant. The tide was turning. Daniel Reyes walked up beside her. He looked tired, but there was a spark in his eyes. "They're pulling back again," he said, handing her a tablet. She read the message quickly. "They're regrouping near Proxima Centauri." Daniel nodded. "That's not just retreat, that's strategy." Lena frowned. "What are they planning?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at the stars. "They know they can't win if we keep fighting like this," he said. "So they'll try something else." She turned to him. "Like what? Negotiation or total destruction?" There was silence between them. Then Lena spoke softly. "We can't let either one happen on their terms." Daniel gave her a small smile. "No, we do it on ours." Ethan Blake sat inside the command center of the USS Argent, reviewing plans for the next mission. His unit had grown. No longer just a small naval team, they were now part of a larger joint task force that included air, sea, and space units. They worked together like a single machine, fast, precise, deadly. On the screen in front of him was a map of enemy movements. The Zalari were building something massive near Neptune. A base? A weapon? No one knew for sure. But Ethan did know one thing. If they waited too long, Earth would lose the advantage. His radio crackled. "Commander Blake," came a voice. "This is Command Central. You are cleared for Operation Thunderfall." Ethan leaned forward. "Understood." He looked around the room at his crew. "Time to move," he said. They all stood, ready for whatever came next. Back on Earth, the United Nations held another emergency meeting. This time the room was full, not just with leaders from Earth, but with representatives from the Free Systems Coalition. For the first time in history, aliens and humans sat at the same table, not as enemies, not as rulers and subjects, but as equals. Ambassador David Langley stood at the front. "We have fought together," he said. "We have bled together. Now we must decide what comes next." A woman from Brazil raised her hand. "Do we accept peace talks with the Zalari?" Langley looked around the room before answering. "No," he said firmly. "We don't ask for peace. We demand recognition." There was a pause. Then a delegate from the Free Systems Coalition spoke, a tall alien with deep green skin and calm eyes. "You want to be seen as more than just a world under attack," he said. "You want to be seen as a power," Langley nodded. "Yes." Another pause. Then the alien nodded back. "Then show them." The final battle began near Neptune. Human and allied ships moved into position. Fighters launched from carriers orbiting Jupiter. Stealth bombers slipped through enemy lines. At the center of it all was Ethan Blake. His fighter led the charge, cutting through enemy defenses like a blade through cloth. His team followed, striking hard and fast. Behind them, missiles fired. Lasers burned. Ships exploded in silent bursts of light. The Zalari fought back, but they were losing. Their great armada, once feared across the galaxy, was being pushed further and further back. And then something happened. A signal was sent, not from the Zalari, from Earth. A message broadcast across every channel. "Earth does not seek conquest. We will defend our home, but we will not bow." It wasn't a threat, it was a declaration. And the galaxy listened. Days later, the Zalari made contact, not with threats, with surrender, not complete, not unconditional, but enough. They offered a ceasefire, not because they wanted peace, because they knew they couldn't win. Humanity accepted, but on its own terms. Zalari forces would leave Earth's space. Their bases would be destroyed. Their weapons dismantled, and in return, Earth would not follow them into their territory. For now, back on Earth, the world celebrated. Cities that had been dark for weeks lit up again. People who had lived in fear stepped outside, looking at the sky with hope. Lena stood on the rooftop of Virex Dynamics watching the stars. Daniel joined her. "They're still watching us," he said. She nodded. "Yeah, but now they know who we are." He smiled slightly. "Do you think this is the end?" She shook her head. "No, just the beginning." Below them, people cheered. Children ran through the streets. Flags waved in the wind. Humanity had survived, and it had proven itself, not just to the galaxy, but to itself. Ethan returned to Earth after the final battle. He didn't stay in command. He handed over his ship and his rank. Instead, he went back to the sea. Standing on the deck of a smaller vessel far from war, he looked out at the horizon. The ocean was quiet, peaceful, and yet, he knew it wouldn't last forever. Nothing ever did. But he also knew something else. Earth was ready, no matter what came next. In Geneva, the United Nations announced the formation of a new office. The Office of Interstellar Affairs. Its purpose? To represent Earth in the wider galaxy. Lena Carter was asked to join. She accepted, but only on one condition: that we never forget where we came from. Daniel laughed when he heard that. "She always was stubborn," he said. Weeks passed, months. "Do I?" Solari faded into the distance, but other voices rose. Alien factions reached out. Some wanted trade, some wanted alliances. Others warned of dangers ahead. Earth was no longer a secret. It was a rising star, and it was not going to hide anymore. The final scene took place in a small town in Colorado. A young girl stood outside her school, looking up at the night sky. Her mother joined her. "What are you thinking about?" the mother asked. The girl pointed at a bright light moving across the sky. "I was wondering," she said. "Are we safe now?" The mother looked at the stars. "No," she said gently. "But we're ready." And above them, Earth watched the stars. And the stars, finally, remembered Earth's name.